I want to share my top 10 reasons why there will very likely never be a World War III so that it may attain objective scrutiny and I can see if my reasoning holds up to critique. Reason number 10 for why there will likely never be a World War III is because of the existence of the UN and NATO. Neither one of these organizations existed during the first two World Wars. Their existence is a strong deterrent to World War III because the dialogue platform of the UN keeps down the vicious rivalries and disputes that led to World War I. And NATO discourages attacks from a rogue nation that could set off a new world war because of the NATO member nations' mutual defense agreements. The existence of NATO would likely have kept a rogue nation like Germany and its rogue government leader in check, preventing World War II and its untold and incredible suffering. Reason number 9 for why there will likely never be a World War III is that Europe has been subdued. After centuries of fighting and two horrific world wars that bloodlet Europe greatly, the European people are apparently very war-weary, especially France. Europe is where both world wars began, and it's for a reason. Europe, because of its closely packed group of economically advanced and militarily advanced nations, is a powder keg that can light if the right fuse is set. With Europe subdued and for the most part militarily pacifist, the area of the world where both world wars kicked off is almost surely not to be the area where the Third World War kicks off, which is why the Third World War is not likely to kick off at all. The 8th reason for why World War III will likely never occur is that the most important nations like Russia, Britain, America, China, France, Germany, and India are not or no longer are imperial countries or dictatorships, but rather republics and democracies. This is key because both the First World Wars started and were agitated and instigated by the tyranny and belligerency of dictatorships or imperial monarchies. Wars start very easily when one person can force it because they want to, like in a dictatorship, or when an elitist oligarchy can push the country to war without the democratic process and consequent resistance of the people. Without the dictatorship and monarchies of old, a World War III is very unlikely to occur. The 7th reason is that 24-hour news cycles and round-the-clock reporting prevent another Hitler from happening. Unlike in the early 20th century, when mass media and global coverage was in its infancy, this day and age doesn't allow a dictator or warmonger to trump around annexing countries and making war preparations largely unnoticed. This type of age does not allow a Hitler to get the dogs of war going before it's too late to stop him and that world war from occurring. Reason number 6 is that there is too much of an economic, military, and resource gap between America and the rest of the world. This lack of other equal superpowers to America deters another world war because rivals or warmongers would have to be almost suicidal or insane to fight at such a distinct and frightening disadvantage. The 5th reason World War III will likely never happen is biological warfare is too advanced. And once again, this fact means any country or leader that agitates a world war at this point in history will probably have to be looking for self-destruction or they are mentally deranged, as they will be potentially subjecting their country and its people to the horrific, surreptitious nightmare of bioweapons. The 4th reason World War III will likely never happen is that the world economy is now too interconnected, such that making war with other countries or starting a world war would end up wrecking and disrupting the all-too-connected and fragile global economy to the point that such a war would likely backfire and cause too much economic dislocation. The 3rd most important reason why World War III will likely never happen is that the world's battlefield has moved to the sports arena and the sports field. Between the Olympics and the preparation for the Olympics and the global rise and efforts put into sports like basketball, soccer, and tennis, the world's young and able-bodied are too busy training and worrying about their own teams and personal athletic goals to be concerned or bothered to put off the best, most robust years of their lives to go fight and get maimed or even killed in some nebulous war. The civilized world realizes now it can compete against each other on the sports battlefield and attain national pride that way, but even better, no one goes home dead or severely crippled, and everyone lives to fight and compete another day. The second most important reason for why World War III will likely never transpire is the existence of nuclear weapons. The reality of nuclear weapons deters even the dumbest and most mentally deranged governmental leaders from trying their hand at global domination or localized force with a country with nuclear weapons. The aggressor would simply have to be flat out insane to not realize that if the country they fight has nuclear weapons and they defeat that country, the country will, as a last resort to avoid subjugation, drop or fire nuclear weapons. And this, of course, is a course of action that could literally destroy the human race in no time flat. And the most important and number one reason why World War III will likely never eventuate is the internet and Twitter. The fact is, the world is far too connected by the internet, and the rich and powerful countries are far too self-centered by things like Twitter and cell phones to sacrifice their lives on any war, short of a direct invasion by some aggressor nation. The advanced nations of the world are getting more and more Twitter individualized and cell phone individualized. This prevents and deters a future global war because for world wars to occur, people have to sacrifice their time and lives for the nation. But when the nation's people are individual in outlook rather than nationalistic in outlook, wars are very unlikely to occur because war requires the people to put the nation before the self. The Twitter, cell phone, YouTube age puts people and their needs, wants, and personal desires before the nation. The more the world becomes individualistic rather than nationalistic, the less likely World War III will ever happen.